Oh, let me. Hello, and welcome to the video commentary for Goblyn, issue 13B. I am Solomon Mars, creator of the series Goblyn. Um, so I don't know. This cover is okay. I kind of like it. It sort of just introduces you briefly. Excuse me. To these characters. Uh, two characters that show up in the book. It's just sort of just a cover, you know. It's just sort of. I I, I never put a lot of heart into the covers because it's so difficult. I say this every. I think I say this every commentary. It's just really difficult to come up with one single picture that depicts all the events or kind of gives you an idea of what you're in for on the interior of the book. And I don't know why I decided to go with covers, considering the books are digital and it's really unnecessary to have a cover. But it's one of those things, you know. Some things you can't. Some old habits are hard to break, and I've always done covers, even when I was self-publishing, and covers are a part of comics. But man, hats off to all those artists out there that can do cover art, because it's difficult, and then it's even more difficult when you're doing it in this particular format, this landscape format. It's just like thinking up new images every issue. It's ridiculous. But I have to admit I do like the guy who's in charge of the rune claws here on the cover. I like his headdress, the way that it looks. It to me, I don't know if it comes off to everyone else, but it looks very in the round. It has a three dimensionality to it. It's sort of round, and I guess it has a lot to do with the shading on it. I really enjoy the way that it looks. I like the design of it, the colors associated with it. I like it. I like it a lot. You know, it really catches your attention. Um, that title is really big, though. Wow. Actually, I guess everything is really big on this. I don't know why this stuff is so big on this issue. All the all the logo work is really big. It's ridiculously big. So, anyways, let's just go on into the issue. This one is Golden Runes. Yeah, Golden Runes. I couldn't see because the control bar was in the way. You can't see the control bar, but I can see the control bar. It's kind of in the way of the title. Sorry. So Golden Runes. I like this picture, the intro, because it's sort of showing you what's going on. Like, these guys are spying on the camp, and you see like these little kids down here that are carrying away something in a crate, and you just see it. It's just one more uh, way of showing just how despicable the Rune Claws are. They're just really bad guys. I mean, that they're kidnapping kids and they're making them mine. You know, they're doing all the labor work and stuff. Um, yeah, it's just. I really wanted to show how this. I want. I wanted to make the Rune Claws really, really unlikable, because they're supposed to be just a gang of just really unlikable guys. They're just the worst kind of society, you know, of the worst parts of society, you know, just the worst kind of people. Well, not the worst kind of people, but you know, they're pretty close. um, yeah, characters in my books do a lot of sneaking. I noticed there's a lot of sneaking around, hiding behind things. I don't know. I don't know why. I don't think I ever did stuff like that when so I don't know why I didn't do it personally, and I don't know why I use that in a lot of my books. You know, characters sneaking around and stuff. But this is I love this part. This is the introduction of the character Vimmer Coco, um, and I love the fact that, you know, as great a tracker and a logic smith as Charlon the Rock Eater, you know, the Rock Eater is, she didn't detect that they were being watched. They're watching the Rune Claws, and the whole time they're being watched, and she didn't realize it. And I love that. You know, And it makes more sense later on when we introduce the idea that, Vimmercoco is a witch clocker. You realize, okay, well, maybe there's a reason to it. The witch clockers are really, really good at what they do. They are quite possibly, I wouldn't say they're the best of the best as far as logic smiths are concerned, but they're up there. The best of the best obviously would be logic saints. And like I said, that's something, like I said in other commentaries, that's something that I really need to address in the data books, because it's not addressed right now in the comics. It will be addressed. A lot of these issues will be addressed in great detail as the series goes on, because everything, is addressed as it comes up, as it takes prominence in the plot. So, and that's the reason why a lot of stuff isn't, even though they talk about things in passing, everything isn't discussed in, definitive detail. They don't break down a definition of what everything is, because it's unnecessary, really. It really is unnecessary. I don't like front-loading stories and holding hands of the readers, by front-loading a story and telling them every little thing, because the story is supposed to replicate life. You don't know everything. You go out into the world and you learn as you go. And you encounter new things, and you may hear a phrase, a name of something over and over and over again before you ever find out what it actually is. And that is what is being depicted. That's what I'm trying to do in this story, is exactly what life is, and it's replicated through these characters, and this entire series is that. It sounds like a lot of BS, I know, but no, it really is truthfully this is the way that I like storytelling, because this is the way that life tells us the story of life. It really sounds like a lot of BS. I'm sorry, but no, I'm being serious here. That's the reason why I don't front load a story, and why often I'll start. It's the term is in medias res, where you start in the middle of the story and sort of do not necessarily flashbacks always, but you sort of go back and tell maybe what happened before, and then go forward with the story and stuff like that. You play around with the concept of time. And it's an old story way that stories work. I don't like front loading a story and then going from the beginning straight forward. Not always. Sometimes I do, but not always. Most times I don't. And it's just because that's not how life really is. I mean, yes, we start at a definitive point and we experience life going forward, but we never experience life in one way. I mean, just as not everyone experiences life in the same way, a single person experiences multiple branches of life. I mean, just as your life is different from your mother and your father, or your sisters and your brothers, or anyone that your friends, it's different from them. The thing that makes it different from their lives and similar to their lives are the different branches in that path that we move along, through time. Our paths just branch off a million different ways. And in that, like I was saying, we are introduced to lots of different things, and we may not understand those things definitively. We may not know the definition of those things. Whether they are actual physical objects or terms or anything, we don't always know what they are. I mean, it's like the concept when we all learn to read and to write. You had to learn that, but you knew letters and stuff. You saw them all the time, but you didn't know what they were. You saw numbers all the time, but you didn't know what they were, and you had to be introduced to that thing. And then after being introduced to it, you were given a definition of what it meant, what it was about. And the same is with any object. When you cups, glasses, shoes, clothes, houses, dogs, cats, everything in the world has to be introduced to you at some point. And up until that point, there is no definition. And then you sort of learn that definition, and then you expand upon that definition, and, such is life. So that's the kind of the reason why, you'll get a lot of terms and stuff that pop up, and they'll talk about some events that happen, and you don't. There's no clarification as to what those things are. Like Jeff mentioned a long time ago, he mentions the All Saints War, and then he doesn't expand upon that. He's making fun of Amy for not knowing what the All Saints War is, but then he doesn't expand on it for the sake of the readers. And that's because it's not necessary right now. There will come a point when it's necessary. So, and that's, gosh, so many spoilers. Anyways, yeah. So she dives out the tree. And I really liked this outfit. It's weird because I designed it this way so that you didn't really understand what was under it. I didn't want like I went through a couple of different designs. There was a design that almost looked like a witch clocker was under it. And I thought it looked too much like the person that was wearing the outfit. So I started playing around with some stuff, and I went back to an older design, which does show up in a much in Volume 2. You see, there in Volume 2 there are some people that you see that are also sort of dressed similarly, but it's slightly different headdress, and that's the design I went back to design Vimmercoco's outfit here. I went back to sort of that sort of look. Because it's wonderfully deceiving, you just don't know what's under that cloak, and I like that. I love Vimmercoco's attitude. Charlone is going to introduce herself, and she's like, "I don't care what your name is." She's not interested in that kind of stuff. She's on a mission on her own. These people are sort of getting in the way of that mission. They're sort of messing up stuff. Yeah. See, and now here's an example of I drop a phrase, and then I actually give a little bit of a definition in a sort of non-direct way. They talk about the mushrooms, the Sari mushrooms, and how they keep people sedated, and then they talk about the people are susceptible to suggestion, and they talk about that, and they talk about it, and also this is meant to sort of give you an idea of what it is that Reduha and Charlone, the Rock Eater, what they do. That they are involved in they're toxicologists, in a way. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Okay. I was trying to remember if that's the term he actually uses. But yeah, they're toxicologists. And, well, definitely Reduha more so than the Rock Eater. But the Rock Eater is one of the things that she learned, toxicology. She definitely learned that when she was growing up. And she passed on that knowledge to Reduha, who is more so being very specific about the path that he's taking as far as what he's learning in logic. That is the thing he wants to learn most. You could kind of think of it as sort of someone going to medical school. He's not going to exactly be a doctor, but he's doing this to sort of help out. And this is my fault for not really going into too much of the backstory of Reduha and the entire Red Castle environment, but Reduha does it to help out people at the Red Castle, because it's a very impoverished area. A lot of the people don't have jobs, they don't have any money, they live day to day, doing what they can. Thankfully, though, you can kind of live off the land. The surrounding area there are fruit trees and things like that. They can do a little bit of farming, but the soil is really, really bad. In that area because of things, the erosion of the Red Castle has polluted the water to a degree. So you take a risk, if you're growing plants there. But some stuff is imported by people who do care. They go out and they do, go and they get stuff from outside sources, and they bring it back, and then they have their own little farmers market and stuff like that. But they do take into a consideration that people are kind of not wealthy there. And they do barter. They have a bartering system. But, some people have money. Some people barter. Like the Rock Eater barters a lot. She barters a lot of services. You know, she does a lot of, you know, fixing. You know, she often she does some sculpting. She does, you know, a lot of things, and that's how she actually you know, is able to get food and, you know, pay for food and clothing and things like that. Well, a lot of her clothing is from her life before, you know, she lived in the Red Castle when she was with the Tree of Arboreosa. A lot of her clothing is, but not all of it. Some of it's it's newer. And you can usually tell, you know, based on the fabric, you know, some of the stuff is really, you know, extravagant fabrics, and then some of it fits with the surrounding area, you know, with all the other people in, say, the Red Castle. Anyway, so that's what Reduha is up to. He's sort of, you know, he's like a doctor that is works at a free clinic, kind of. Except, you know, he's not really a medical doctor. He's a toxicologist, which I guess is a medical doctor. But, you know, he's not a medical doctor. You know, because he can't heal wounds. You know, he can't well, not completely heal wounds, but he can't mend broken bones and things like that. Although, yeah, I'll go ahead and say it. Yeah, there are logic smiths that can do stuff like that. They can mend broken bones, sure. That just sounded like a lie. That sounded like a lie. The way that I said that, you know, ending it with sure. But, yeah. He's a toxicologist. And I kind of regret not expanding on that a little bit more. I'm thinking there may be a little bit of a place to put that into a story that will happen in the future. There may be a little bit of a place to put a story about Reduha's past, and why he does the things he does. But that's for later. Let's talk about this. What's right in front of us. So she definitely talks about this gun that Charlon carries, which honestly is really an artifact from an older version of Goblin. It's just a leftover that I thought I'll keep it there and I'll use it as a source to sort of comment, because, you know, guns are very rare in this world for your average person. They're very expensive, and they're very rare. You know, it's very rare for just an everyday person to walk around with it. So someone carrying a gun, obviously, they're either a part of the criminal world, or they've had money at some point in time, or they're an important person, or have been an important person. And this is what Vimmer Coco is able to sort of deduce. She's able to sort of figure out from you know, this, what she's seeing. But the truth of the gun is it's a leftover from an older story where there was more emphasis on this gun and less emphasis on everyone's powers. And this gun it's a cursed gun. It's cursed, and if you use it, you curse yourself. It backfires, and as part of the curse, and you are poisoned. You're actually poisoned by the curse that's placed on it. And that's part of the reason why Reduha went into toxicology, because he used the gun, and he had no choice. He had to learn how to take care of himself. And it was a throwaway. It became a throwaway part of a plot device, and I just kept the gun around, and I didn't explain what the gun was about. You know, it's unimportant, really, at this point. It will never ever be a part of the story. You know, it's not a part of the story anymore. Though, you know, it sounds kind of interesting to me now that I'm talking about it, but there's no place that I can't shoehorn that story in anywhere. There are some things where I can shoehorn something in later, but not that. It doesn't work. It does not work for me. Yeah. Let's just keep going. It is a little strange for her to agree to join with this witch clocker, but she knows that this is someone who's obviously not a novice. They're not. She doesn't know that they're a logicsmith, but she knows that this person isn't just someone wandering around the forest. That this is someone that she doesn't want to cross right now. She's still trying to figure her out, which is smart. It's pretty smart. I love how this border is actually taking a color cue from Amy's hair over there. That's funny. That is another part of the story. One of the leftover bits of not just this particular story, but the entire Goblin series is the namesake, Goblin, which is reference to what Jeff is. A goblin, being a specific type of bounty hunter, a bounty hunter that slugs, a slugger is a bounty hunter in their world. A specific type of bounty hunter that hunts or slugs mankind's and monster kinds, but it's a mankind that slugs mankind's and monster kind, and that is a leftover again from an older version of the story where there was more focus, at least for a good chunk of the first volume, on Jeff and his adventures as a bounty hunter. Basically, his first year, when he first met Sankofa and stuff like that, and none of that is done because I didn't want to sit down and draw all that because it's really nothing but Jeff running around, punching monsters in the face, punching other people in the face, and while it may sound really exciting, it's really, really boring to me. Someone who likes story and mystery and intrigue and plot devices and things, and there's not a lot of plot devices, and there's not a lot that can be said that can be done in all of that. Beyond the point where Jeff meets Sankofa, there's not a lot that they really got into, and that they didn't really get up to a lot of stuff in that first year, other than him meeting Sankofa, and, well, because I assume that everyone who's watching the commentary has already read up to date, to the issues up to date, using the Circles of Blue Fire. So, that's about as exciting as it gets. And nothing really exciting happened, obviously, because there are no plots, there are no references to earlier plots. There are no references to events happening in that first year of Jeff and Sankofa. Nothing really happening, nothing big in there. And unfortunately, this whole part of Vimercoco disguising herself as a slugger is a leftover of that earlier version of the story where I focused on Jeff being a slugger as well. And it's that Vimercoco was pretending to be a slugger while she was traveling around. She had a slightly bigger role to play in this early portion, and that is because, and I mean, it got really damaged and truncated, and stuff got shifted around. When I separated the way that I separated the stories. I think I've talked about it in past commentary. I separated the stories and added the first few issues to sort of get people used to the characters and their personalities and things like that before we went on to the Red Castle story arc, and introducing characters like Vimercoco, and I the term is she's a dragon. She's supposed to be a dragon, which is really just a funny way of saying dragon, because a long time ago her character was known as the Clockwork Dragon, which I always liked, except it lost significance the more and more I developed her story and her personality and things like that. But she was supposed to be known as a slugger, and her sort of nickname was the Clockwork Dragon, and she was a dragon, And a dragon is a monster kind who slugs mankind and monster kind. And then there are also terms for just a regular a mankind who slugs mankind, a mankind who slugs monster kind, and a monster kind who only slugs mankind, and a monster kind who only slugs monster kind. There are terms for all of that, but I won't get into it because it's really not important anymore because the book isn't about bounty hunters. I don't know. Who knows? One day in the future, maybe I'll do a spin-off that follows the life of a slugger or a group of sluggers or something like that. Lord knows I could come up with that story. And it would be kind of interesting to see other people's lives happening maybe around these same events and how some of the bigger events affect their lives or don't affect them. Who knows? Yeah. If I could, I would actually do that series alongside Goblin. I wouldn't do it myself. I'd write it and let somebody else be the artist on it, but I don't know. Who knows? Who knows? Maybe as the series gets closer to the end, I might do that, just to sort of keep the spirit of Goblin alive. But it's kind of hard when things will be, they're so associated with these characters. But I don't know. I'm rambling. Sorry. So, remember Coco, she's approaching camp, and there's a switch. There's this switch suddenly to what she is. Now she's a merchant. She was a slugger to Reduha, Amy, and Charlon, and then to the Runeclaws. Now she's a merchant. She's a very wealthy merchant apparently, because she pulls out this blue clay coin, which is very rare, very expensive. And usually, if you own something like that, then yeah, you're pretty wealthy. And it does make sense that she's different things to different people for the sake of adaptability. You have to adapt your story. It's just almost like a spy, But it's just a matter of that she needs to get what she wants. And that's me ultimately making excuses for her and her character, but the truth behind it is that she changed. What she meant to the story changed several times from her incarnation back when I first came up with Goblin, where she was a completely different thing. She was a very different thing way back then than what she is now. And she's changed over time, and it happens. But, yeah. And this is one of those situations where we introduce something and then we talk about it a little bit. We sort of loosely define, you know that obviously this thing is valuable, that that she gave to them. It's obviously important. There must be some sort of value to it. And, yeah. Yeah. This picture that's not good. This picture it's been damaged. I can see it. There's a color distortion. There's a difference in the color at the top of the page and the bottom of the page. Oh man, I had no idea. I got to go back through the original file and make sure. It may have happened during the conversion, because this is all off of a PDF, but it may have happened during the conversion of the original files to the PDF. That's sad. Anyways, so finally, Sankofa is speaking. He hasn't been speaking a lot in a lot of the issues. He hasn't been talking, mostly because it's in his nature to be just sort of observe. He just kind of watches, and that is a trait of me. That's my personality trait, a part of my personality trait. When I meet new people, or when I'm with friends and I meet like their extended circle of friends, or when new people are introduced, I don't talk a lot. I because I'm not that kind of person that just sort of, I'm not very social in that way. I don't just go out and meet new people. I wouldn't say I'm mistrustful of new people, but I don't just bring anyone into my close circle, my personal circle. Um, because, well, I'm an ex-military brat, so for me, people come and go. People are constantly moving in and out of your life. People are always being shuffled. Your life is always being shuffled. And that was the life that I experienced very early on. I've moved many, many places from London to New Mexico. I've been a lot of places. And I shouldn't say London, because it's not London, but England, rather. I lived in Lakenheath as a little kid. Which is, it's, anyways. And, you make friends, and then suddenly, a year later, they can't be your friends anymore, and you thought they were your best friend, and things like that. So when I'm introduced to new people, I usually sort of withdraw, or I withhold getting wrapped up in the fun of meeting someone new. I instead take the time to observe them, and, kind of see, and well, from years of doing that, I sort of have figured out who's going to stay and who's going to go, who's going to be around for a good chunk of my life, and who is not going to be. And there are some friends that I've mentioned this to. I've mentioned, I've been able to tell who's going to be around for a while and who's not. And that sort of trait has been passed on to Sankofa, who is silent, and that's how I am. I just kind of watch. And most people think I'm putting on a front, and it's sort of become a part of me. It's not that I am being false in my presentation. I'm not a friendly person immediately. I am not. And it sounds like I'm a very mean person, but it's not. I'm very standoffish, though, in the beginning. In a stranger sort of scenario. At a convention, I'm less standoffish because everyone's there for the same thing. So it's more of a home to me, so I'm a little bit more comfortable. If someone approaches the table, hey, I know you're there for a reason. I know you're here at the convention for a reason. If you're at the table, you're curious, or you know who I am. And so I'm less standoffish. But, I've been with my friends, and I've gone to a bar and, met extended friends, and I'm very standoffish. These aren't my friends. These are your friends. And these people, I may not get along with them. I don't know. And so you have to sit and figure out, are these the kind of people that I want to be associated with? And Sankofa is kind of doing that same thing where, but he harbors secrets. He's harboring secrets that he hasn't told Amy or the Rock Eater, and it's something between he and Jeff. Obviously that being, the circles of blue fire logic, are a secret that the two of them share. And so he's very standoffish and sort of quiet when it comes to he and the Rock Eater, but also because she knows that there's something, that he's hiding something. She knows that he's not a real sprite. He is a logic artifact. And because of that, she's kind of, she's very suspicious of him, and so he's staying quiet for the most part. But this is like sort of that first point in which he starts talking to her, when he realizes that this is Jeff's grandmother, and so you kind of don't want to make an enemy of her. She has. While she may not be the best person in the world, and maybe she wasn't always there for him, but she still cares for him. And she's looking out for him to a degree. She's worried about him, obviously, and that's why they're looking for him. But she's still obviously very suspicious of this friendship, in quotes, that they have. She is worried mostly that Sankofa is taking advantage of Jeff in some way, or misleading him, leading him down the wrong path, which is the more chaotic path versus the more ordered path. But, most of these characters, most of the main characters definitely believe in the balance. Chaos cannot exist without order. Order cannot exist without chaos. There's a little of the each in the other, sort of a very yin-yang sort of thing. But she's very, in Sankofa's case, we are talking about a living, breathing, not really breathing, but he is a living logic artifact, which is a very rare thing and generally associated with, we'll talk about it later, but right now, we'll talk about it more in depth later on when it's brought up, but in a different commentary. But it's generally considered sort of something that, it's sort of like an imprisonment. It's something that you do to someone who did something, I guess, typically it's, when they did something out of bounds, unlawful. They did something. They generally walked the more chaotic path in life. It's a punishment. And whether or not that's true or not, for not just Sankofa, but for any logic artifact of this sort, it's more so in the realm of it's not fact. It's not fiction, but it's sort of in the realm of maybe a myth or hearsay. It's just sort of something that people say. Mostly because, and it's sort of one of those things that kind of becomes a vague truth because of, well, it's sort of like, it's based on a vague truth, and it sticks around in contemporary society, contemporary life, as far as at least logicsmiths or people involved in logic, because in the past you imprisoned, sprites and spirits that were more negative. They were very chaotic and destructive and things like that. They were, bloodthirsty murderers and things like that. They just, the bad guys usually got imprisoned in that way, but not in the way that Sankofa is. And that in itself is suspicious. Why is this logic artifact like this? What is Sankofa? What is his history? What is that about? And the fact that he doesn't talk about it, the fact that he isn't openly talking about it, and neither Amy or Jeff talk about it, mostly because neither of them knows a lot about it. Jeff probably knows more than Amy knows, but they don't talk about it to her. And Jeff is constantly dismissing it, saying, no, he's fine, he's good, he's a good guy, trust him. And she just can't, because of the way she was raised and what she has heard and read and what was taught to her. So yeah. I have been talking so much and not going through this book. So there's a lot of, I'll just talk about, as in passing, I'll try to quickly go through some of these pages. A lot of just showing the process of what they're mining. There is no name to the thing that they're mining right now. There's no name to it. I don't talk about the name because it's not important to talk about the name right now. It is a future plot device, though. Obviously, in the next few issues, but beyond that, too. Spoiler. I got rid of the tracks. That was the thing. There were little rail cart tracks. I got rid of them because they were so ugly in the previous issue. I wanted them so bad, but the thing is, it's really hard to depict rail tracks and the way that the wheels of like a train or a mine cart or something, the way that they sit on a track is very hard to depict in my particular kind of style because it's not as detailed. And so it just, I looked at it and I gave it my best shot, and I'm really bad with perspective sometimes. And I said, no, I don't like the way it looked. They're just going to have these carts running through on bare ground, not on tracks. I do like this part, Jeff hallucinating. It's kind of cool. He sees this guy, and then it should kind of look kind of cool through here, and it morphs into that. I thought it would look cool with this this particular comic reader that I'm using, it morphs really well from page to page, and he just freaks out because he sees a Mercer, and it's not really there, obviously, but he sees a Mercer. And the guy just misinterprets it. He misinterprets it. I'm a little tongue-tied right now. He thinks he's asking for mercy. Because this kid's drugged. Oh, poor Jeff. Look at his eyes. They're so red. I really enjoyed that little detail. The sweat and then the redness in his eyes. Man. But, of course, he's still Jeff, so even drugged out like that, he's still tough. He can fight a grown man. He's a 15-year-old guy, but he can fight a grown man. I mean, I'm sure that's something that's actually, I'm very sure that that's something that's possible. Just depends. Depends on who it is. Yeah. I was going to show him hit him, but it's not necessary. You just kind of see it, the result. And they're like, what the? And then it switches over to them talking and sort of explaining how their operation works. That thing. I won't even try to pronounce the name of them. No, I'm not going to try to pronounce the name. It's not necessary. Because they don't even mention them by name anywhere in these issues. But they're these little, they're how she keeps an eye, literally, on stuff going on everywhere. It's how she knew the Rock Eater, Amy, and Reduha were wandering around out there. She didn't see them firsthand. She saw them through these things. And I like their little transformation. They're so weird. Little clockwork, little gadgets. One of the reasons why she was supposed to be called Clockwork Dragon. But also the Witch Clockers, as a whole, deal with clockwork mechanisms and things like that. Anyway. But I love those little things. They're so funny. Because, there are different ones for different uses. So, I hint at what's going on. The electricity is very rare in small towns, rural areas. It requires assistance by the government. They come out and you have to, set up. You have to have them set up generators and things like that. And because you have to sign a contract with a mining facility that's usually owned by the government to bring in material to run the generators. These guys, and for a small organization like this, or even honestly, a tiny little village, most tiny little villages that are beyond the realm, the surrounding area, the rural area, or I guess the metro area, I should say, of a city or a kingdom, if they're too far away, they usually don't have electricity unless they're in one of those kind of setups. And these guys, if you don't have money, then what's going on? And, she's like, well, maybe you guys are using your money to do this. How are you doing this? And she's trying to, figure out some stuff, but also because she's just she's surveying the entire area, with her own eyes, but also by using those, her little things. I forget what they're called. I do. I honestly forget what they're called. Barotate? I think they're called barotate. Barotate? I don't remember what they're called. Something with a B, I think, is what they're called. I could be confusing that with her gun. She has a gun that has a really extravagant name, too. Anyways, yeah, and he's telling them that they have no connection to the UFK, which is the United Federation of Kingdoms, or the EOS, which is the Empire of Sands, which are two of them. They're pretty much the major organizations that run things in Mahu mostly. Yeah, they are. I was thinking that maybe there was another one, but no, there is no other organization really outside of those that kind of run things like that. You're either affiliated or associated with one of those two, or you're neutral. A lot of villages are just neutral, like the one from issue 1 and 2. The village Chuta that Elil is from, it's a neutral village. They're neutral. They have no affiliation with any military, any paramilitary, no kingdoms, nothing, because they're really too far outside of the radius of any kingdoms to be associated. But also, they chose not to associate because, I mean, with the way that the war is going on, and you don't really get a sense of how the war is taking place, because I chose not to talk about that right now. As far as these issues, they talk about it, but you don't know firsthand how big and how bad this war is. But for the most part, it's probably best to ally yourself with one of these two forces. Usually, people ally with the UFK because at least you can maintain some sort of freedom. Whereas if you ally yourself with the EOS, you usually have to give up a lot of freedoms. A lot of older citizens, men and women, have to join the Spectral Army, and also if it's a mixed village, that being monsterkind and mankind, it's probably not a good idea to affiliate with the EOS because they do not believe. The Crimson King does not believe in affiliating or associating, socializing with monsterkind. They're at war with the monsterkind. So yeah, and it's just your entire village could be taken over by the EOS. The Spectral Army could just come in and just burn your whole village to the ground because you were neutral, because you didn't take sides. And they come in and they see it's a mixed village, just all sorts of people there, monsterkind and mankind. They may choose to just burn the whole thing down. Of course, they may choose to burn the whole thing down if it's all mankind. That's the kind of people that they are. They kind of don't care. If you don't have anything that they find useful, if you don't have any resources that they can find useful, if it's not if there's no strategic significance to it, to your village, they may just burn it down to the ground. There's a lot of prejudice, a lot of hate. There's a lot of everything going on with the EOS, and that's why a lot of people have united against them. So yeah, that's why a lot of people who even the people that aren't united against them, because the Tree of Aburoso isn't affiliated with the United Federation of Kingdoms, the UFK. They're not associated with them. They're outside of all those governments, outside of all those kingdoms. They're their own thing, but still they sort of work against the same. They're working in a way towards the same kind of cause. They're both fighting against the EOS. Yeah. But I mean, even the UFK are fighting against, the monsterkind, some armies of the monsterkind coming up from the Southlands, the Gavamash Empire. It's just kind of the way that some things work. They're sort of in between, but it wouldn't do the UFK any good to side with the Empire of Sands. It's politics. Come on. it's really politics are like this. Where it's all kind of it's all just really crazy and out of control, and it's everyone's these different little parties, and everyone has their own view on how things should be, and for the most part, kingdoms associated with the UFK believe that there can be a peace between the two. Most of the Gavamash Empire are not exactly like that. There are some very purist sort of people, and and that's why you have the border wars around where the Red Castle is. It's because you get people like the Monster King's sons who are kind of prideful. They're a noble family and they're kind of proud and they believe in a little bit of purity. Not saying they're completely competent in the sense of they understand the value of economic stability, financial stability, things like that. So if you have a mixed group of people in your kingdom, that may not be a bad thing as long as things are happening. You can keep the economy from crashing. They believe in that. But at the same time, they want to sort of go to war with the EOS, and the UFK is like, no, you don't want to go to war with the EOS, and because of that, you have this conflict that's been happening between the UFK and the Gilgamesh Empire, and the armies associated, or I should say the armies associated with most of the Gilgamesh Empire that are run by his son, by the Monster King's sons. So you have this conflict, and I know none of this is talked about in the none of this is talked about in the story at this point, which is why I'm talking about it now. But also, it's going to come up later. These things come up later. I don't really like getting super in depth with the politics because politics can be really confusing. But yeah, so yeah, that's some of it. But also, the history of Mahu and the history of the world is a part of the ongoing story. As time goes on, most of this stuff will unfold for readers. I hate saying the readers. It sounds really weird. It sounds very impersonal, but I don't know. For all I know, my mom is watching this, so and she's not a reader, so she may not know who I'm talking to or talking about, and I never want to, anyways. So this is Lancaster, Master Lancaster, which is really goofy to say, but he's the master of the Rune Claws. He is their leader, and technically, there was the one character from the last issue where I talked about the guy whose band I forgot to draw in the back of his helmet, so it looked like his helmet was stapled to his skull. And this guy here are his uncles. You would think that they would be in charge, but no, not necessarily. It doesn't always work that way. Not when it comes to pseudo-royalty or nobility of any type. Pseudo-nobility, pseudo-royalty, or anything. But, yeah. I definitely, though, I wanted to show where the Rune Claws came from. And I knew the House of Golden Runes was where they established themselves and where their name came from and stuff. And I wanted to show a lot of that. And I wanted to show like this collection of stuff, and it's associated with the Witch Clockers and stuff. And I just loved this whole idea. That is interesting. She's talking about that these items, they're late 23rd, early 24th century, and that was my way of telling the readers, where we're dealing with. We're dealing with a period of time, depending on what calendar you follow, further along than what we consider, here in our time. We're, 21st century at this point. I always say that because who knows how long, some of these videos may exist. Somebody might be, watching this in the year 2300 and they're like, this isn't the 21st century. What is he talking about? I don't know. But, for them, time, they've had more time in their calendars. I mean, of course, there are some calendars that will place us at the 5,000 year mark, not the 2,000 year mark, It just really depends on, and there's some calendars that are somewhere in between, some that are slightly ahead, and it just really depends on what you choose to believe for yourself. And, but with these guys, they are at somewhere in, honestly, I'll just go ahead and say they're at a 5,000 year mark. The year that this series starts, where Jeff is 14 going on 15. The year is 50, 5796. I want to say. I could be wrong. It's somewhere around there though. That's the year is something like that. It's something like that. I don't remember. Exactly. It's really messed up that I don't remember. But yeah, so it's, they're at the 5,000 year mark. And so you're looking at some early, really, really old artifacts is what I'm getting at. And she's talking about that and showing, sort of putting this guy at ease because he was a little standoffish. The fact that, the fact that she was introduced to him is good. They introduced to the head of this house, is good. But still, it's sort of about business, and she had to show, she had to put him at ease and show him she knew what she was talking about. Let's do some business, but also because she wanted something else out of it. She wants something more. She's trying to find something else, and he's like, oh well, about these. Let me show you some other stuff. Of course, they get interrupted by this guy who's he's complaining about Jeff. Jeff is beating the mess out of people in the mines. So, it was just kind of the luck of the draw that the uncle should get pulled away. So now she really gets to play around with manipulating Lancaster. And he takes her, to this other room. He's like, let me show you some other stuff. He's like, show you some of the most valued pieces of my collection. And she's flattering him the whole time. She's just flattering him, really manipulative. She's really good at that. He takes her through this area, and I actually do kind of regret her saying by the saints. I regret that because the witch clockers are not directly associated with the logic saints. They don't believe in the same school of thought as your average logic smith. Mankind logic smiths like Jeff and stuff, or even monster kind logic smiths like it just dawned on me that I actually said mankind logic smiths like Jeff, but I guess, it doesn't make any sense. Just forget that. There's obviously, some story plots that have been revealed at this point. If you're contemporary with the story that's being released, but, going through these, God, the rambling in this episode. This commentary is so rambleful. But anyways, they don't believe in the same system as more contemporary logic smiths would, where they make reference to the logic saints. Witch clockers are a different type of logic smith, and they do not associate their lineage with the logic saints. And I'll get more into that in volume 2 of the series. So anyways, this clock is an artifact from very old part of the story, very, very old stuff. This was something that I remember I told my friend. We were in a road trip to Ohio, and we did a road trip to go visit his girlfriend in Ohio at the time, and we were talking about stuff, and I was telling him about, the dream that I had about this gigantic clock. And we're talking about this gigantic clock in the middle of this room, surrounded by all these little clocks and stuff. And we're talking about that, and we're talking about drawing it. I know he's drawn it in several occasions, and I've drawn it on several occasions. And I just, drew it again. I decided that it's a part of witch clocker, the witch clocker mythology, the witch clocker history. It obviously, it's a part of the name, clock. Gosh, I hate that I'm at the hour mark on this, but I'm gonna push forward. I'm gonna keep going. But you see, they're still running. The clocks are still running, and she's talking about. She's still probing. She's looking to see, how much he knows, how much he doesn't know. She's talking about the mineral that they're actually mining, and whether or not they know what this mineral is capable of. And he's talking about how he's talking about how much he doesn't know, and his father, and stuff. And they talk about the name that they gave it, the House of Runes. I mean, Golden Rules, the House of Golden Runes, and that's where they get their name from. And it's a doma of enlightenment, but it's a very specific doma, and it's a doma associated with the witch clockers, which pretty much puts it predates a lot of events that have happened in Mahu history. The witch clockers are really old logic smiths, and for them to have a doma of enlightenment that exists there on Mahu, it means a lot. It means a lot. And to Lancaster it means less because most people in contemporary society don't believe in witch clockers. Witch clockers are folklore. They're not seen. It's not that it's not like every day you walk down the street and you see a witch clocker. Oh, there's a witch clocker. Okay, whatever. Or the people that are associated with witch clockers. And because of that, because they've been gone from history, they've been gone for so long from society, they've been put into the realm of mythology and folklore, and they're anything associated with them that may make reference to them, it's just assumed that maybe it was like a cult or an organization that believed in them and just made their stuff there, made things that sort of represented that idea. But yeah, it turns out that this is a library. It's not just a regular doma of enlightenment, it's a library. And the truth is that a lot of them are libraries. They're different doma represent different things to different groups, and in this case, this one is a library that's associated with witch clockers to some degree that Lancaster can understand. He can't fully understand it because he can't read the scrolls. But yeah, he can't read like the stuff on the scrolls and everything. But he can't read the runes. But still, most Doma of Enlightenment they usually have some sort of library-like area where you keep sort of historical records or something like that. But yeah, most of them you can read though. Most of the stuff you can read in them, but in this case you can't. She asks, "Are you willing to sell the scroll?" And he's, "Oh no. Everything but the contents of this library." And he talks about witch clockers, and the myth and stuff like that. And he talks about his family, and he talks about his father and how his father was thought of as crazy, and to try to decipher the runes and stuff. And he honestly believes, Lancaster, just like his father, believes that the secrets of those scrolls will unlock the secrets of this whole place, and everything, that mineral and everything about this place, and will put them in a position of power where they could even overthrow the EOS. They can control all of Mahu, and that's what he's after. And who knows? Honestly, who knows if that's even possible just reading those scrolls. If he could read the scrolls. But that's the end of this commentary. I should go ahead and end it now since I'm at the hour mark, instead of rambling anymore. But I don't know. I like that arm though. I like that picture. I like the character of Lancaster. It really makes me think about Gatchaman or G-Force, depending on Super Science Team Gatchaman. I remember it vaguely from when I was a kid. I barely paid it any attention, but I saw episodes of that when I was a kid, when it was G-Force brought here, and it was they really messed over it, like a lot of early anime was done. Anyways, but yeah, that's definitely what these masks are, sort of a loose sort of reference to my childhood being exposed to stuff like that, and just weird, and just going, what is that? Not knowing why those characters were designed in that way. And then, later on as an adult, developing stuff, and it's sort of a nod to, the past, not just my past as but also, the past as far as character design, comics, animation, and creators. And, yeah, that's why they're designed that way, because, they kind of reflect witch clockers, but at the same time they don't. There's absolutely no reason that the witch clockers would wear those. They would not wear them. They're funerary masks. But we'll talk more about that in the next couple of commentaries. But yeah, still, it was also a nod. I always appreciated the look of those. So yeah. So that's the end of this commentary. Thank you for sitting through an hour of me rambling. I think most of them are an hour or a little bit more, some of them. But thank you anyways for sitting through. I hope you enjoyed some of it. I hope some of it was a little insightful, kind of gave you a little bit more idea of the backstory, or what goes on in the creation process, what's going on in the world of Goblin, what's going on, in the minds of some of these characters, why I did, made them the way that I did, their personalities and things, what, their motivations are, beyond what's just on the page. So again, thank you, and hopefully you join me for the next commentary. Bye.